This is Brent Richardson, and welcome to the Business Minutia Podcast, where our focus is on the details of business that are often passed over by traditional classes and leadership training. We focus on the stories of real people who have tried, failed, and learned through their experiences and are willing to share their lessons with others. So, Jamie, I tell you, we're going to have an interview with the great Dave Borski. What did you think?
Immediate flashbacks to college. Man, that guy knows you.
Now I'm scared. I don't know if it's a good thing to have people that know you that well out here talking.
And the first thing I told you was you got to make sure that the man tells a story about you from college.
And he did. And I was scared of it. And it wound up being a great promo that he says things about me that I'll never be able to say about myself.
Oh, well, first thing about Brent you want to know is he's extremely brilliant. He probably has never mentioned that on his podcast, and he probably never will.
Nobody should mention their brilliance.
Yeah. So I remember I struggled quite a bit with trying to understand electrical engineering concepts. That's where we met, was in electrical engineering labs and classes. And, you know, I was a businessman from an early age. I tried to find the smartest people and get to know them. Brent was one of those guys, along with Casey Anderson.
You used me.
A couple other guys. Yeah. 20 years later, you find out.
Casey was a smart guy, too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Brent would always, I just remember we'd have tests, and you would just be freaking out and just, at some point you quit studying and just start praying that you would make an A.
This does sound familiar.
And I would just study till 2 a.m, and I'd usually make a B or a C, and you would usually ace it after, stopping studying and praying. And I always thought that was kind of interesting. I was like, how's this guy making a 3.9 and double E with praying?
Brent, I swear I can see your head just swelling from that one.
Best $20 I've ever spent. That's all it took to get somebody to say something positive about me that I could put on the air. That's fantastic.
Okay, enough about you. Tell us a little bit about Dave.
Dave was a guy that in college you could just tell he's going to do his own thing.
Yeah, he always hit me as, like Chris said on an episode a couple of weeks ago, about what an entrepreneur is, and he just seems like the quintessential entrepreneur.
Yeah, he is. Coming out of school, he went straight into field service at a large company, so he's got this really, maybe 10 years of big company experience. What Dave is famous for today is being the owner and founder of Talentum Engineering Services. They specialize in embedded systems. One good application example of that is COVID-19 workplace screening kits. As people are trying to get back to work and companies are trying to get back online, they want to do some screening to make sure they're providing the safest workplace for all of us as we're all coming back to the office. His company is actually providing solutions and kits to allow some of that screening to take place. So just one good example of how they're impacting people. So welcome, Dave Borski. So you started big and have scaled down.
I've gone from, 100,000 to 100,000 to 3,000 to 1.
Would you recommend that to folks? I've heard other people that recommend that as well.
I think in life, the more diverse your experiences, the more you can learn fast. And if your goal is to have your own thing, I think that looking back, it was great for me because I got to see how the really big companies do things, how the mid-sized company do things. And now I'm seeing and struggling with how do I do things in a small team. So if your goal is to be your own business owner, I highly recommend starting out with a very large company where you can kind of fit in and see how things are done.
Yeah. Now I know you've had multiple small business. You've scaled down and scaled sideways and consulting and really been off on your own since, in some way, off on your own since what, 2013?
Yeah. 2013 is when I left Swery. Left a really good job with great benefits to go work for a company that had about 100 people doing government contracting.
So walk me through psychology of that transition. That's tough.
Yeah, it was tough. The way I think about it is, I'm a Christian, and I always felt like God's calling me to this. And so whatever your belief is, whatever's calling you is your deal. For me, that's what it was. And I feel like for my wife, it was really good to go from a really large company down, and kind of, go into a company with about 100 people that was fairly stable, that had good revenue. Benefits weren't quite as good. The pay was a little better. And so like, as I moved down, just from a financial standpoint, ability to provide for my family, I was able to keep doing that. But it wasn't like I left Alcatel, which would give 5 weeks time off and, paying nothing for insurance, basically, to having no insurance, which I've had no health insurance for the last 5 years. I've been using a health sharing plan.
Okay.
And I think going from one to the other would have been really hard on my family.
Gotcha.
So, as a father and a husband, I got to think about who I'm taking care of.
Right.
And so it was a good way to taper things down and also to see how a mid-sized company works.
And you felt pulled to this. This was something you felt like you were supposed to do.
Yeah, I felt called, and for whatever your belief is, like I say, I felt called. I felt like this is something that I'm built for.
Even people that I meet that are agnostic or atheists, I've observed even in their cases, they feel like a pulling or like I'm supposed to go do this, like
right.
This tenacity associated with thing. Even some of the type A entrepreneurs, they can't rationally explain how they are or why they are. They just I have to do this. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I remember the first time I thought about it, I was going to the deer lease when I was about 18, thinking, one of these days I want to run a software company. That really sounds like what I would like to do. And I still remember that drive for some reason. And I don't remember hardly anything.
Yeah.
That's my wife. I don't remember stuff very well. But
so you transition from working your way down to scale, and so currently, what you worked from a large company down to 100 to currently it is.
Technically, it's one. Like, if you really want to get down to the brass tacks, I have a good group of partners, supply chain, 1099 consultants, teammates, and so I do work with a lot of people. I would say I probably have access to or work with around 20 people.
Right.
But technically, it's one employee.
Right. All right. That's quite a change.
Right.
But still, you've been able to have success. But you've had some history, or since 2013 when you've been off on your own. That's not been all sunshine and roses. It's been some challenges along the way. Like, what learning do you have from your early business ventures where you're trying to tackle this?
I think probably one of the biggest things I learned was that you have to be very clear about your expectations when you go into something, and communication with people, being clear about what you expect, but also listening and learning about what they expect is key. Because when I left Swery to go to this other company, basically was being brought in as sort of the new generation of a small business, where most of the people had been there for 20, 30 years. And the corporate office was very small. You can count them on a couple hands. And so everybody knew each other. They had a way of doing things. They had typewriters. They had paper timesheets. And I came in and started changing some things, rocking the boat a little bit. And I was sort of told,
literally typewriters.
Literally typewriters. I was asked to try to fix it because I was an engineer. As an engineer, people ask you to fix everything.
Absolutely.
Great people. Like, from the people aspect, they were great. I don't know that I was very clear about my expectations, because what I was told was that, hey, you're coming in, you're going to run this thing, so-and-so is retiring, you're taking over for them. And then I think what happened was I came in and infused some energy and started getting us into some new areas, made it exciting, perhaps, and so-and-so's retirement got pushed out.
Reinvigorated some passion.
Yeah, so-and-so's retirement got pushed out. I think I felt like I was treated more as a tool as opposed to the guy that's taken over, a tool to make other people more money. Yeah. And I wasn't really necessarily, my goal wasn't to make all the money. My goal was to try to shape this thing into sort of what I wanted it to be, in my vision. And I was getting a lot of roadblocks to that. So I think one of the things I learned was, if you go into an existing organization, especially with people who've been there a long time, learn about what they really expect out of you.
Yeah.
Learn about what they want you for. And I think asking really good questions and asking lots of questions up front is really key.
Yeah, to force the alignment and make sure it's clear.
Yeah, and also, making my expectations clear. Like,
sure.
I really want to put my stamp on this, and and maybe even cast a vision, throw it out there and say, what do you think about this? And if the answer is, well, we'll see, or, well, okay. A lot of times that means, we're not going to give that much thought.
That's right. Yeah. If you're getting a lot of vague answers, then yellow flags or red flags, maybe.
Yeah. If they're not sitting at the table with the elbows on it, engaged, asking questions, and you're probably going to get ignored at some point.
Yeah. And I think we can get, or at least for me, you can get complacent about that and in reality. But if you've got this tenacious drive, you can't do that. You've got to shift gears.
Yeah, and I'm kind of a weird engineer. I'm not the detail OCD guy. I'm more like the architect, creative, idea, achievement-oriented type. So I'm achievement-oriented, but I don't like to put in the work on the math.
Yeah, you need to surround yourself with people that are strong there.
Right, and so working with these folks, I had this vision, but I also wasn't really a type A confrontational person. My tendency is to take a step back and to let things go and see how things are going to end up. And I realized, if you're going to run a business, you have to, even if your tendency is to take a step back and let things go and see how things go, you got to at some point assert yourself.
Yeah.
And you've got to, not be angry and not be forceful and not rock the boat necessarily, but you have to go toe to toe with people. And what that means sometimes is, in a respectful way, say that I'm not happy with the way things are going.
Right.
And that sometimes forces a conversation.
Yeah. There's courses in this called Crucial Conversations, or just in general, we tend to, and maybe engineers are worse at this, but people in general are going to try to avoid confrontation.
Right.
Like most people. Right. And I think you can't do that. You've got to deal with the demon in front of you and confront it, and get to where you can have that conversation in a way that's not combative, that stays focused on factual information.
Right. And looking back in my career, I was always thinking that I knew things better than my boss. And I realize now I was a schmuck in a lot of ways, because really half of that is on me for not communicating clearly what I expect.
Yeah.
And if I could go back, I'd do it all over again. And that's probably what every 43-year-old would say.
Yeah.
If they really analyze themselves and think about how could this conversation have gone different.
Yeah.
I think I would have been a lot more direct, a lot more respectful. And I've learned a lot of techniques from the people I've worked with on how to do that.
Yeah.
Some of that's just experience.
So how do you take that learning, and then pivot that into your 20-person army now?
Okay, so what you do now is you have to know who your people are. Everybody's different. And so when you're thinking about your team and your partners, and even if it's your 1099s, like some of the people that have helped me now are currently like my father, who was an electrician, ran his own business, but started out pulling wire. He's engaged now, and it's, I think, just giving him the opportunity to help. He's the guy that would give a spare tire, and he has given a spare tire to just people on the side of the road.
Yeah. That's
who I learned from. And so having him do stuff like that and come in and help with the business, that's recognizing that he has, and he's retired. He doesn't have to work, but he wants to. So giving him some things that he's interested in doing are great. Now, outside family, because a lot of small businesses do involve a lot of family. Mm-hmm. I've worked for a few others that, are primarily family run. That has its own ball of wax.
right.
And that could take us down a whole other side road. But if you're looking at people who are not family, I think a good way to do it in a small business is to still try to engage those people at a personal level to where you really understand their motivations,
Right.
Their needs, their wants, what drives them. With some folks, it's just sitting down and listening to them talk for an hour, even though I have other stuff to do or a proposal to get out. Just sitting down and listening because they want to talk about something technical, or they want to throw ideas on the wall.
Yeah.
Just being available to people who need a sounding board. Other people, they're driven by the task, got good engineers, and they just want something interesting to do. They don't really want to talk that much. And so for them, a lot of times the conversation is, hey, how's this going? And okay, well, we wrote this software. Oh, we got this bug. Okay, well, how much time do you need to get it done? Oh, well, so-and-so. Okay, well, do you need anything else from me? Is there anything I can do to help? No, I got it. Do you need that? Nope, I got it. You immediately see that some people, they got it. They just want to get their work done and they want to quit.
Right.
Okay, you got to honor that. You can't bring them
Right.
into a corporate meeting for an hour with balloons.
Yeah.
And unicorns, balloon unicorns. They don't care about that.
Yeah.
They just want to do their code and upload it and push it.
Right.
So learning what your people want and like, what motivates them, what drives them, and how to interact with them, I think is just as important as figuring out what your customers want.
Yeah. So tell us about your company today.
Well, this company was started in 2015, primarily did consulting. I still do consulting on the government side for a company, write proposals, kind of oversee business development type stuff on the government side. I've been doing government type work since 2005, so I'm very familiar with it. Looking to team to build engineering work. This year, that's in the goals. But what we've been doing the last couple of years is developing products and solutions for manufacturers. One of our biggest clients is Samsung in Austin. We're looking at some other fabs as well. What we do is we help companies to increase yield and reduce downtime and large errors by developing custom monitoring solutions. So a lot of it has to do with engineering, sensors, physical things, and also IT. So if you want to, for example, make sure that the temperature coming into a multi-million-dollar machine of some deionized water is 78 Celsius, we can do that, and we can send it to your automation system in a real-time basis, so that if all of a sudden that pump goes bad, you know about it because we put a sensor there. And a lot of times, these manufacturing companies have spent millions of dollars on these tools, and they go back to the OEMs and say, hey, can you add this functionality? Can you add this? And they say, okay, well, we can roll that into our next software release next year, or they'll ask for X and give them B. What we do is we come in and give them a systemized approach. We document everything and tell them, well, this is exactly what we're going to do. This is the result you want. And we show on paper how it's going to happen, and then we do it.
So both product and support.
Yeah, and that was the great thing about working for the large companies is I know how to write software requirements. I know what ISO is. I know what quality means. So I know if things go wrong, where we need to put quality checks in.
Right.
That's one of the benefits of working for the
And
bigger
you can
companies.
think and see from their perspective too, in terms of what problems they want help solving and what they don't.
Right. And I think working with the bigger companies, I know how much things cost and how long things take. And if you come out of school and somebody says, hey, can you build me a product? You're thinking, well, this is a lab. I'm going to write some software and get an Arduino board, and I'll have that done for you in 2 weeks, and you'll have a product. Okay, what about FCC compliance? What about ruggedization? What about EMI, EMC, which are like, electricity coming out of the box?
Yeah, it's one thing to do something out of a garage and sell a few, but doing it on a large scale is different.
Yeah, and especially if you're expected to save a company millions of dollars.
Oh, yeah.
You can save money by doing it in a garage, but it's not going to catch everything.
Right, and they're going to monitor that.
They're going to monitor
They're
that.
going to monitor that. They're going to be looking for that ROI.
And then your reputation's skunk.
That's right.
You have to be correct in everything you do.
Yeah. So coming from government-related contract stuff to commercial space, that's totally different world. Where did that come from?
Well, I kind of followed just opportunities as they came up. And I think that was just, it's not like I said, I want to do small software company, and I wrote the business plan, quit my job, and started doing it. What happened was I sort of took baby steps. So when I got out of Swery, I started consulting with companies. Eventually consulted half-time to bootstrap the business. And I'd recommend to anybody who's looking to start a business, if there's a way you can bootstrap it by yourself and not have to raise money or get investor money, go for it. And if you can consult for halftime, a lot of times that'll pay your bills. And that's a great way to, try different things when you don't have the pressure of, I got to put money on the table, or I got to put food on the table. So I need money on the table to put food on the table.
Yeah.
Consulting's a great way to do it.
Yeah.
So I had some consulting opportunities through people I'd worked with who said, do you want to be an employee or a consultant? I immediately said a consultant. That's I know I don't have health benefits through that, but I can charge a little bit more because he doesn't have to carry the fringe overhead to pay for my benefits. He doesn't have the risk of me being an employee, so I can't, file any kind of lawsuit against him as an employee who's been, if something goes sideways.
Sure.
As an employee, there's more risk on his side.
Right.
So if you can consult, you take more risk on you, but you also have more freedom and flexibility to go to more of a deliverable based employment where my goal is not to work X number of hours this week. My goal is to
accomplish X,
submit so many proposals, win so many bids, make sure that this gets done, make sure that this gets done.
How has the time management been between your corporate experience versus what you do today?
Elon Musk is one of those guys that he tracks like every 3 minutes or 5 minutes on his calendar. And I find now that that's extremely helpful. Like I don't do
3 minutes.
I don't do down to 3 minutes.
Okay.
I'll do down to 15. That's about the most smallest chunk I'll get.
Wow.
But I don't necessarily do it, but by planning it that way, I accomplish a lot more.
Oh, I see.
Give yourself lots of quick deadlines.
For your own self-task, I'm going to spend this 15 minutes on this.
Right. I have to research this.
Okay.
Don't spend 3 hours like I would in a corporate environment to get a really awesome response. Sometimes it's just, hey, I need to know where I can buy a different kind of label, for example.
Interesting. Okay.
Or instead of spending 30 minutes or an hour figuring something else out, I'll take one of my 20 guys.
Oh my gosh, that would drive me crazy. I'm glad. I get that there are people out there like this that manage their time this way, and I know Elon does a similar kind of thing. So I know there are people that are that way, but I can't even have a 30-minute meeting. I tease people in the office about 30-minute meetings. I don't know what are we going to accomplish.
Oh, as the company size gets smaller, the meeting time gets smaller. Just because there's so much to do. Like everybody wears so many hats.
Yeah.
So you have to take off a hat quick, go to the next one, take off a hat quick.
I think some people's their minds, and I think yours is this way in a sense that you can ramp up really fast on a topic and move quickly. So 15 minutes is very efficient for you.
Can be.
For me, it may take me 15 minutes to figure out what I'm doing. And then once I'm there, I'm really efficient, but I need to stay there for a good hour, right? I guess it depends on the task and what you're doing. But I think the idea behind, blocking your time and saying, okay, I need to spend this much time on this and no more. That's a really good concept that I don't employ. That's not a bad idea.
I think as you move up in a food chain, what people need more are, strategy, direction, quick decisions. And so obviously you don't want to make ill-informed decisions, but a lot of times, and you'll hear this everywhere in management books, podcasts, you get 80% of the information as a leader. That's great. Make a decision. Right. Don't spend another 3 hours because unless you're doing an engineering task, if I'm actually writing a spec or writing code or something like that, which generally most of that stuff I'm subbing out to the people that really enjoy. I'm doing a little more of the strategy architecture stuff. Those kind of things have to be done right. And so I usually don't schedule time in 15-minute increments if I'm doing detailed spec work that has to be 100% correct.
It's the right block of time for the right task.
Right. So if you're doing engineering, I don't think that makes sense to block 15 minutes to research, the software routine. No, you got to get that right. Right. But business, I got to make a decision whether I'm going to spend next month trying to make 100 new contacts or 10 new contacts at the existing place.
Yeah, help me with we were talking about this earlier about, one of the things you learned was the need to make quick decisions. Mm-hmm. That terrifies me. As an engineer, I'm like, and a detailed person, I'm like, well, I'm going to need to research this for about a month. And then we'll pray about it. And then, so help me understand, like, how did you get to that point? And what do you mean? At what point do you go? Because you don't know that you got 80% of the information.
Right. So I work for a company as a consultant called G2S. The guy that runs it, his name's Sam. And Sam is like a father figure to me in business. He's absolutely great. He's started multiple companies that have gotten to 7 figures and above and done it very well successfully. And his advice to me was a long time ago was, and he's great about telling you what you need to hear as well. And this is another thing about business. You need to find people that have been around it, done it. Yeah. I could not have done this by myself and been successful for 5 years.
Solid mentoring, right?
If I didn't have people that I could bounce things off of and say, hey, what do you think about this? And then, having the humility to listen to them. As an entrepreneur, we don't have that a lot. What was your question? I totally went down the rabbit hole.
You're making decisions quickly when.
So Sam would say you need to make decisions just in general quicker. Like you're going to be passing up opportunities. For example, looking at pricing things. So I have one product where we have one pricing model. We have one size that we kind of developed based on talking to lots of people. Now we're finding out we could probably sell a lot more of these if we had a less functional, cheaper version.
Yeah.
So like you could probably sell a lot more Ford Focuses than you can Buick Enclaves, right? And so I have Buick Enclaves, and I'm finding out they want a Ford Focus. I don't know for sure that they're going to buy a Ford Focus, but I need to come up with an offering for that.
Right.
And so I could spend the next month consulting with my business coach, my partners, my dad, Sam, you. Okay, what should I do? I could build a spreadsheet, or I could just come up with a pitch.
Yeah.
Take it to 2 or 3 key customers and say, all right, I think I have a Ford Focus. What do you think? What's driving your problems, and will this solve it? Do you see anything wrong with this? And that way, if you get in front of the customers quicker, if you can find a way to get in front of your customers quick and get the information about what they want,
right?
And like everybody knows, there's nothing like face to face. You got to get in front of them face to face to get these kind of answers.
Right.
I firmly believe in that.
I agree. I know I've had people talk about, even for the podcast, they're like, if you Skype, you can get this person and this person. Oh man, if I can't see, your facial expressions, I mean, it's like I'm reading a script. It's just, it's not the same.
We're not AI.
Yeah.
We have souls.
And in manufacturing, you see people that really struggle to get things done in a manufacturing environment. Nothing gets done on time. Well, have you put your tail on a plane and gone over and looked across the table from the person to make sure that they understand that it's important to you?
Right.
Well, they should know to do that. No. Go get on a plane and let me know how it goes. And that's if you want to get things resolved face to face, that's the only way, if it's important. Now, once you've established relationship and rapport, you can do things over the phone.
Oh, yeah. I text my customers all the time, like, hey, can you, more logistically, hey, are you going to be here this day? Could I swing by? Could I drop off this kit? How's your software working? If I want to pitch them on something,
right,
I ask for a meeting.
So quick decisions. I think I understand what you mean. You're still getting some information, getting enough information. You're not going to go, invest everything you got into this Ford Focus model, but go try it out and see, and make a quick call. How fast can I find out whether this is a viable opportunity?
Yeah, the goal is to figure out as quickly as possible a direction that is likely to succeed.
Yeah,
and then find the smallest baby step that would also give you the information you need to make the next bigger step.
I do think that that's something that people struggle with, and that I've learned over the years is it's not about how you tackle the wall. It's about what the next step is. It's about, what's the next brick I need to get a hold of? What's the next, can I need to kick to keep this thing moving? What's the next ball that needs to get tossed in the air to keep things juggling?
Right.
And focusing on, and time management for me is the same. It's, if I think about the whole project, I just get, deer in the headlights. But if I can think about, okay, what's the next move that needs to be made that's actionable in the next 15 minutes that I can take to go make sure this thing is moving in the right direction? And sometimes it's not there, which means I need like a 4-hour block of strategy where I am drawing this up on a board, or maybe I need to surround myself with some people or something. But it's a matter of finding what that next piece is. And so many times we're like, it's almost like a utopia or bust. Like if I can't get it perfect, then we're just not doing this. And that's kind of what you're talking about.
Yeah, you got to build a system, and that's where we are today. Is we've had some success. We've sold some very large projects to Samsung and some other clients, and so we're in a growth mode right now, which is great. But we need to make it sustainable, because I think a lot of small businesses, you have one opportunity or one big project. You deliver on it, you build up something, and then how do you find the next one?
Yeah.
Because a lot of these you find out through people
Right.
And a lot of times they may be so nichey. Like the stuff I do is kind of nichey, so I may not know anybody else that has this requirement. So I've got to figure out a way to go find people that I don't know and sell this to them.
Yeah, you're the second entrepreneur that I've talked to about that it's brought up the same thing. Is like their early businesses were great by themselves, but they couldn't scale. Didn't have any sustainability.
And I think systems is the key. And you can do it a lot of different ways. I have a business consultant who's working with me now. He's helped a lot of businesses about my size, about $500,000 to $15 million, to grow, especially in things like margins, because small business, You just want the work because you need to feed people. And so a lot of times you'll give up a lot of your position based on, okay, what's the minimum amount I need to, pay the bills? And you'll put that out there in front of a customer and say, hey, please give me the work because I need the work.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times you have a value. Like, for example, some of the stuff we're doing, nobody else has a product for that does exactly what ours does. And they'll have to drop probably, $250,000, $500,000 to develop a competing product. So I've got a window of opportunity. I should be able to make a good, healthy margin on it. I don't believe in taking people to the cleaners, but I do believe in business, and businesses need money in order to grow. And so it's better to find a reasonable value that customers are willing to pay, as opposed to starting with okay, what's the least amount I need to get by in order to get more sales?
Right.
So
I get these folks ping me from LinkedIn or other things over the years all the time that are like suppliers or folks that are reaching out to us trying to sell us something. And I kind of cringe and roll my eyes because I've got a day job and, we're not going to outsource some of these pieces. How do you, and some people are really good at, and I will pick up the phone and chat because I've just met them over the years, or we have an organic connection or some sort of relationship. How do you get past that piece? Especially as an engineer, you're not a marketing guy, but you kind of are. Your task is to go chase down business. How do you authentically connect with these people, and how do you make the connection initially to start talking about this?
that is a great question, because I think that's where I am right now, is learning how to do that better. What I've been doing that seems to work, some of the strategies. One is the LinkedIn Sales Navigator. A lot of people put their credentials and everything they've ever done on there. Mm-hmm. So you can do a lot of research on the companies you want to work with, especially larger companies. Mm-hmm. You can search by their job titles. And I think it's good to go up and down the chain, look at the engineers, the directors, the managers, the VPs. I got one response from one of the top 3 guys over here at Samsung Austin, and bumped into him, talked to him about the product. You'll be surprised at who actually has the time. A lot of times it's those executives, but the mid-level directors are too busy. Yeah. Like in those corporate structures, there's some management level that's getting the squeeze. Yeah. And a lot of times it's not the guys at the top. Yeah. They'll have more free time to talk to people because they're the strategy guys.
And you never know the problem that they're dealing with and facing. We've talked about this before. The problem that they're dealing with could be exactly the thing that you have the solution for. It's just a matter of getting 15 minutes.
Right. And so you have to take a tiered approach. There's lots of good books on prospecting and sales. My sister was in marketing and sales. She did door-to-door stuff. I never had the opportunity to do that, but if I could change anything, I'd go back to high school and sell newspapers. Really? Or do something where I had to sell to people, because that would get me over the fear of you didn't
do Boy Scouts thing where you had to sell candy?
No, I didn't do any of that crap, man.
Oh my gosh, I hated it. It's so bad. No. Going door to door, what a pain in the neck.
It's confrontational. I avoided confrontational jobs.
Yeah, I was like, you want to buy this? You don't, right? Cool. Next.
No, I flipped burgers and waited tables, and
which is funny because today sometimes I get referred to as a marketing guy, I'm not a marketing guy.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you come up with a system. I think systems are important. I'm a firm believer in, to grow my business, I need good systems that trigger me to do things at reliable times to meet outcomes. Any business that's been successful has systems, whether they document them or not. They do something over and over again that works. And so what I've been doing is taking a tiered approach, starting with the people I know, reaching out to them, hey, I'm doing this business thing. Or if it's somebody I know that I've worked with, just let your friends and family know what you're doing. If you have something of value, don't be afraid to let people know about it. And also, when you're going out reaching people that you don't know, a good way to do it is to look at people's connections on that LinkedIn Sales Navigator tool, because a lot of times somebody you work with now, or current customer, is a connection or has worked in the same group or something as somebody else. So you can start off with connecting requests that says, hey, I'm Dave Borski with TES. I'm currently working in the metals group with Jim Bob at Samsung, or Acme Semiconductor Company, would like to connect. I would say out of every 30 of those emails I send out, I get about 5 connections. And out of those, hey, thanks for connecting. Would be great to send you our brochure. Do you have an email?
Right.
Easy. If they're interested, sometimes people they throw their email out there. And then the email is where I kind of hit them up with what the pitch is. So out of 30 people, I'll get to maybe 2, 3, 4 brochures go out. I don't know if this is fast enough. This is what I'm doing currently.
Yeah.
But I have gotten some meetings out of it, and it's an opportunity to call the switchboard. Hey, this is Dave Borski with TES. We connected on LinkedIn recently. Do you have a minute? Most people will say, not really, but what you got?
Yeah.
And I'll give them hey, I'm developing, I have a product, we currently have delivered, and we're increasing yield and, reducing excursions at Fab X. I'd like to send you a brochure. Would this be something that you're interested in? And a lot of times people will say, well, we already do that in-house, or,
right.
No, no, we really don't do that. And I'll just ask another question or two, like, could you tell me why? And what you're looking for is people who want to talk.
Yeah.
The people who are like, no, I got a meeting. I'm walking into a meeting right now. Okay, well, could I email you? Do you have an email address? No. Either they'll say no or they'll give me their email. And so in a sense, I only ask them a couple questions after they try to shut me down. But you got to call people.
Yeah.
You got to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to ask questions, because a lot of times people will just start talking, and then you can't shut them up. And then those people will tell you who you need to talk to, or which organization you need to talk to, because that's prospecting.
Right. Interesting.
It's you're getting market intelligence.
What's your favorite part of the job?
Well, I think part of being who I am, people will say, you're not really like an engineer. You talk to people, or you're doing bids, or you're wiring up cable, or you're talking to people. And I think part of it is that, if you look at the strengths test and the personality tests, like I kind of am in the middle on a lot of things. Like I'm not really sharp and pointy in logic or relationships or really anything. And in a sense, I almost feel like I'm not good at anything. But that also makes me pretty versatile. And so I like diving into different parts of business. I'm a curious person that's curious about a lot of things. But my favorite thing, to be honest with you, is coming up with a solution with a team. And the team is the customer and the employees or consultants, whatever you want to call them legally. It's your team, it's your customers, coming up with something, building it, putting it in there, getting paid, and then seeing everybody walk away happy, especially your employees and the people that helped you get there.
Yeah. So extend like 5-10 years out from where you are today with your business. What's the ideal look like for you?
Our goals are to get to 2 to 5 million, sustainably, low employee count,
Lean and mean,
having some people to kind of help with the day-to-day, take some of the stress off of me, and get some of the parts out of the garage, and just have a system that can work, that you want to work on your business as much as you can, so that you don't have to work in your business. I know that's kind of a catchphrase, but it's really true. Like when you're starting I would say your first 2 years, you're working in your business mostly. And that's where I am. This year, I'm starting to work more on my business. I'm taking a day a week almost to work on the business.
Yeah.
Because I have right now the financial capacity to do so. So instead of going out and hiring an admin assistant, an office manager or an engineer, these are things I could do, or a marketer, I could do these things. I'm instead working on systems, working with a process consultant guy who's, really good at systems. And he's helping me do the one thing that I'm not good at is focusing on a strategy. I tend to kind of come up with a strategy, and it's something that works in sales. Like, okay, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. A/B testing, I'll try this. But you've got to be following an overall architecture of your strategy. And he's helping me set that up to get a lot tighter and focused on, this is exactly what we do. So when this opportunity comes up to, like, for example, write a website for Texas A&M, which is something I got approached with this past week. Well, that's IT. I can write a website, or I can hire people to do. That's not really, improving manufacturing yield. So I'm turning down some money opportunity to focus my time on.
Sure.
Yeah,
you have to make oxygen choices. Where are you gonna spend your energy?
Yeah, and at the beginning, sometimes you got to mow the grass. Like I said, with the consulting half time, oh man, that's a great way, especially if your spouse doesn't work outside the home.
Yeah.
And you don't have a very high overhead. I'm in the same house I was in 15 years ago, so it's almost paid off. I'm in a good position financially now to do it. So
you're one of the things we cover on the podcast with every episode is kind of a point of, if you were going to go back in time and whisper to the younger version of you, what is this detailed small thing that you were missing to allow you to get to the success you've had today? What was that one little thing that, that unlocked either a strength or an awareness for you, this little minutia point that was what you would go tell the younger version of yourself 10, 15 years ago that would have enabled you to get to where you are faster?
I think that it is imperative, and I know I've touched on it, to find people who've done this before, to come alongside you and listen to those people, even though you don't really get it. Like, I had people telling me what to do in my first job, second job, third job. I had bosses. I'm sure they were very frustrated with me because I would focus on the customer, and I would focus on, things that they weren't necessarily telling me to do because I thought they were the right things to do. And looking back, I was probably a schmuck, like, well, the customer wants this. Well, our business needs this. And so I was sort of a little bit of a rogue employee, if you want to call it that. I was hardworking, but I was the guy that would call up the customer when I felt like it needed to be done. And then the director would come in and say, hey, why did you call Dr. So-and-so? Well, I needed information on this project to do my job, to make sure he gets the product he wants. We were doing stuff for the A-10 aircraft. And I remember the director coming in and being in a little bit of a huff and puff that I called the doctor that runs the whole aircraft structural integrity program for the A-10. And I'm like, hey, he's an engineer, I'm an engineer, we need data. Or I need to find out who that needs to come from. And he said, no, that's not how we do things. You got to go through your manager and this. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, this is just so.
Yeah, go way slower than that.
Be bureaucratic. And now that I'm in the position I'm in, it's like, I think I could have learned a lot more from that director by listening to him and understanding, or maybe asking the question as opposed to getting just annoyed and
or defensive.
Or just like, yes, sir. I should ask, well, what exactly is that? If I really felt like I was doing the right thing by calling him. I apologize for that, but what should I have done? And can you tell me why?
Yeah.
Like, what am I missing here? I want to be, my goal is to be X. How do I get there? Asking those people above you, how do I get to the next level? Or, hey, this is what I want to do. How do I get there?
Sure. And it is interesting how we often don't want to go ask for help or don't ask, but there's nothing like someone coming and asking you for advice or counsel. Like when somebody comes to me today and they're like, hey, so-and-so told me you're really good at this and I'm struggling to understand. Would you be willing to help me with? Of course they're going to be willing to help you. That feels good. Somebody coming asking you for help. You think, and sometimes I'm like, well, yeah, you should not take my advice on that. I'm definitely not the expert, but let me take a shot at it.
and this applies to customers too. Last week I went to one of my customers and just kind of hat in hand, hey, I'm kind of struggling here with selling to you guys.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need to do different? And he's like, you got the number one product. You guys are doing great, but can you sell us a Ford Focus?
Yeah. Not the Cadillac. Give us the stripped down model.
Yeah, I could have spent 3 more months cold calling people trying to sell the Escalade.
Yeah.
Whereas, in a couple of weeks, I could turn out a Ford Focus on paper, put some numbers down, start generating some energy, and try to get a $7 or $8 figure contract.
Yeah. Just with a little humility and coming in and yeah. That's an interesting concept. I don't know that I've thought about that, but from a mentoring perspective, surrounding yourself with as many mentors as you can is certainly tremendously powerful. Having community and mentoring, and obviously, I've always said you want to be careful with who you have mentor you. Successful people.
Yeah, you got to be careful. And I think one of the benefits of waiting till I was closer to 40, which I was advised by a psychologist in my 20s, a business psychologist who I ran to in a huff and puff about this director. And like, I just don't know how much longer I could make it here, man. I'm frustrated with this and that. And he's like, you're an entrepreneur. You're going to be gone from here one day. So why don't you wait till you're about 40 before you start your own business? Because you're going to have so many more arrows in your quiver at that point.
Wow. I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
And man, that was a great piece of advice for me, because I've been going for 5 years. 20% of businesses make it 5 years. We've made it. We're growing. And I think a lot of it has to do with figuring out who to listen to, what questions to ask, because that input is just gold.
Yeah, this has been really, really valuable, Dave. I think quick decision making and and mentoring. It's a lot of good topics for people to think about, and I do find it interesting or valuable. I think it's one thing to talk to a CEO of a company that's been outrageously successful, and that can be intimidating, right? And I go, well, that's cool to hear that person's story. Like, I love hearing stories about Elon Musk and reading about Elon. But when you read his biography, or when I do, I go, that's not me, and I don't know those people. I'm glad those people exist, right? But it's not me. But it's different when I hear from people that I can relate to, connect with, and go, oh, that guy's like me, and he's off doing his own thing. And I think there's folks out there to listen to this and be like, I think I can do that, right?
You can.
You can. You can. I do think there's value to the, we would call it a calling, but a pull. There's got to be. You've got to be really fired up and motivated that this is something that I want to go do.
Yeah, and it's not like I have endless energy. You just have this picture of an entrepreneur and of Elon Musk and think, I'm not like that guy. I'm just more bent towards entrepreneurialism than I am an entrepreneur. In fact, I've had people who know me well say, you're not really an entrepreneur. That's Elon Musk. Yeah. But I have enough in me to know that I'd rather do this than work as an employee for somebody else.
Right. Yeah, you're not renting your time out. But I would say that I've observed your time management over the years, and you're a pretty high bandwidth guy, right? And folks if you're lazy, you should not be running your own business. Like, that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and I don't get that. Like, I don't get laziness because I have that achievement bone. Like, right. I have to have significance and achievement in my life in order. I don't know what's driving that necessarily, but it's there.
Yeah.
And so if you have that and you're like, I'm not really satisfied with what I've achieved today, and I think I can do a better job on my own. I don't know how to get there. Start talking to people. Yeah. That's how I got there.
Yeah. Very, very good. Thanks, Dave. Appreciate the thoughts and the input. Folks, thanks for listening. Hope this is helpful and useful for you. Have a great week. Significance is a great word to hear Dave use there at the end, because I value that over what most people would say success. I would place more value on significance because, like, as I've heard you say, significance outlasts success, or can outlast success. And success means different things to so many different people. But for me, I really am looking to have the biggest impact that I can have on the world and the people around me. So I love that he used that. And speaking of significance, we've got topics for episodes for years that we could cover and sit here and talk about it and interview people about and bring to you.
But that's not the point.
But none of them will be as significant and impactful on people's lives as listening to you, the folks out there listening to us that are getting something out of this. Let us know what topics you would like to hear. That's my call to action. What are the topics you'd like us to cover? We can adapt and adjust. We've got plenty of other content that we'll continue to push out there. But if there's topics you'd like to hear, we would like to adapt and adjust and bring those to you. We've got numerous ways you can reach out to us. How can they find us?
Well, we have the Facebook group. That's a business minutia discussion. And then we have the website, and you can contact us directly from there or through the Facebook page.
And every other potential social media
Instagram,
thing that's
Twitter.
Right. Did you know they were going to merge YouTube and Twitter and Facebook?
I did not know that.
Yeah, they're going to call it YouTwitface.
Okay, I walked right into that one.
That's my dad joke for the week, folks.
Great.
But up.